Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 Spoilers channel. Billy threatens Kane with retaliation. In the Young and the Restless Monday, September 22nd episode, Tracy and Kane got back together. Billy proposed that he and Jack take down Kane together, and Tessa and Daniel decided to look into it. On the Young and the Restless, Tracy, Kane, and Phyllis. Tracy was welcomed home by Jack and Diane at the Abbott estate. Tracy was invited to join Jack for supper in their recently remodeled dining room, but she asked to postpone the invitation since she had an appointment with Amy at society. Amy wished Damien had never met Aristotle Dumas. Jack bet. Tracy expressed how shocked she was to learn that Kane was actually Dumas, since the man she had known would never lie to his friends and family. Jack realized that Kane had changed significantly from the person she had known. Jack recalled that one of Tracy's writings had been inspired by Kane. Tracy stated that she and Kane had been close when he'd needed a buddy following his divorce from Lily, and he'd wanted it to be more, but Tracy had recognized it wouldn't work. Tracy went on to say that they hadn't communicated since Kane left town when their relationship ended. Tracy raved about the therapist who had helped her see that she wasn't to blame for being duped by a sociopath. Tracy vowed she had no ill will against Kane, and Diane questioned how she felt about what he had done. Diane inquired as to whether Jack had succeeded in getting in touch with Billy. Billy had been infatuated with the notion of Kane using him to regain Chancellor, Jack told Tracy. Jack lamented the failure of his attempt to reason with Billy and foresaw that Billy would soon commit a grave error that would land him in jail. Billy yelled on Kane's train that he couldn't be dismissed with a quick phone call. When Billy insisted on knowing why he was absent, Kane replied that there were simply too many factors involved. Billy complained that it didn't track while Phyllis was around and inquired as to if Michael was a substitute. To prevent losing Sally over a business agreement, Kane told Billy to go home and concentrate on soothing her. Billy said that it was personal to him because he had nothing left after losing Chancellor and Abbott communications. Billy snorted, "So you owe me, brother." Billy needed a level-headed individual, Kane thought, and things were too personal for him. Kane had discovered how difficult it was to bring someone back after pushing them away, so he persuaded Billy to make amends with Sally before it was too late. After everything blew up in his face, Billy screamed that he would never be as much of a screw-up as Kane and cautioned Kane against crawling back to him. Kane stalked out after Billy added that he wouldn't like what came next. Kane demanded that Michael correct the matter right away. Kane insisted that stopping Billy came first, but Michael wanted to make his position clear first. Kane anticipated that Billy would snap, and he emphasized that Billy needed to be restrained to prevent him from undermining their objectives. Kane assured him that after Michael resolved the issue, he and Michael would make things clear. Following Michael's departure, Phyllis praised Kane's choice to fire Billy. Kane questioned why Phyllis and Michael still appeared to be at odds. After Michael had stood up for the lady who had set Daniel up, Phyllis insisted that he pay her. She would put anyone under the bus to obtain what she wanted, but she demanded rigorous loyalty from those in her circle, Kane said. Phyllis retorted that they had come together because Kane shared their sentiments. Kane inquired as to whether she was worn out and wanted to end the evening. When Phyllis said she was hungry, Kane asked whether she had any plans. "I do now," she answered. Michael quickly joined Billy at the bar at society after he placed an order for a drink. Billy warned that trying to neutralize him would be pointless. Michael said he missed chatting to Billy and that all he needed was a drink. Billy questioned why Michael, who was ostensibly retired, was employed by Kane. Michael vowed that he wasn't Billy's substitute and that his only concern was that Billy wouldn't act hastily. Many had attempted to save him from himself. Billy complained, but this time it was different since Kane had let him down. When Billy asked why he shouldn't ruin Kane's grand scheme, he guessed that Michael was present because Kane was worried about what Billy may do. Billy advised Michael to inform his boss that he had messed with the wrong guy. If Billy followed logic, Michael volunteered to pay the tab. Billy told Michael to go while he could and not risk his life on an unlawful plot, since Kane was untrustworthy. Michael maintained that Billy had not objected to it when he believed he would receive what he desired. Billy's eyes were wide open as he complained that Kane had dangled Chancellor in front of his face before pulling it away. Kane would not like what Billy had in store for him next, he declared, and he had a new foe. After thanking Michael for the drink, Billy left. Michael was happy when Tracy joined him. She said she planned to remain for dinner, but Amy had canceled their plans. Tracy questioned whether she should be concerned about her brother when Michael told her that she had simply missed Billy. Kane and Tracy met eyes as Phyllis, and he walked into the restaurant. Phyllis questioned Michael's absence from Billy. Kane hugged Tracy and said it was great to see her as he and Phyllis crossed to the bar. Lauren texted Michael to let him know that she was done with Christine and was eager to surprise him. Kane followed Michael as he left to inquire as to whether the issue had been resolved. Michael told Kane he would take care of it. That Phyllis knew Kane surprised Tracy. Phyllis clarified that they were collaborating and that Kane had asked her to his party in Nice. Phyllis inquired as to whether Tracy had ever considered Martin. Tracy revealed that she had nightmares about Martin harming her and her family, but she also occasionally woke up and thought Alan was still with her. Phyllis revealed that she continued to have nightmares in which she and Sharon were engaged in combat. Phyllis reaffirmed that Tracy wasn't at fault, despite Tracy's apology for what Martin had caused them. Tracy said that an author never revealed her secrets when Phyllis asked whether she was using her writing as a means of retaliation. Tracy assured them that the first copies of her most recent book would be given to Phyllis, Sharon, and Ashley. As Kane came back, Phyllis toasted to them and to the future. "Tracy looked fantastic," Kane exclaimed. He remarked that he had given her a lot of thought over the years, to which she replied that she had done the same. As they embraced, Phyllis writhed. Diane reasoned that since Billy had already made up his decision, there wasn't much she and Jack could do to prevent whatever came next. Billy said he had heard his name when the front door crashed. Billy was told to go home by Jack if he had been drinking. Billy vowed that he wanted to strike a bargain rather than fight. A startled Jack claimed that he had assumed Billy had no interest in interacting with him. Billy acknowledged that he had said some foolish things, but he had seen the reality and realized that Kane was just as much of a problem as Jack had warned. Billy suggested that Jack and he take down Kane together. Tessa greeted Daniel with a smile at Crimson Lights and said Lucy was watching Arya. Daniel looked strange, Tessa noted. When he disclosed that Mariah had contacted him for a conversation, Tessa wondered why she had chosen to contact him rather than her. Mariah was aware that he and Tessa had become closer during their time together at their guitar lessons, Daniel said. He disclosed that it had sounded as though Mariah would not be returning to Tessa and Arya after she begged him to take care of them. Mariah had mentioned traveling to Boston to receive additional assistance, Tessa remembered. According to Tessa, Mariah had confessed to having attempted to kill someone, but before Tessa could respond, Mariah had run off. Tessa inquired if Daniel felt it was true that Mariah had tried to kill another human being, but she worried upon learning she'd made him think about the way Heather had died. Daniel maintained that he couldn't think Mariah would try to kill someone and that she wasn't a monster like Ian. Tessa was unsure about what to believe and was concerned that Ian's homecoming had set Mariah off a negative chain of events. Tessa wondered if Mariah was correct when she said that Tessa and Arya would be better off without her. Daniel felt Mariah was most concerned about protecting Tessa and Arya. Tessa believed that Mariah would only lose her temper when someone she cared about was in danger. Mariah had changed since her business trip, Tessa bemoaned. Tessa debated whether to let Mariah depart and navigate life as a single mother or to try to persuade her to stay in town. Daniel was hesitant to take sides or go too far, but he promised to stand by Tessa and Mariah if he could. If he chose a side, it had better be hers, Tessa laughed. They chuckled. Daniel reminisced about a period when he had no obligations or issues and could be wild and reckless. Daniel inquired about Tessa's intuition. Tessa said that she couldn't leave her wife to suffer alone and that she still loved Mariah. In an attempt to learn more about what had transpired, Tessa made the decision to visit the hotel where Mariah had stayed during her vacation and speak with staff members. Daniel remembered that he had just been discussing his arguments with Heather with his father, and he felt bad about squandering time when the most of them had been pointless. Tessa hoped she wouldn't run into anything suspicious when she called Aria's caregiver and took a leave of absence from work. Daniel advised her not to travel alone, but Tessa was unsure of who she could bring along. "Perhaps your best guitar student," Daniel said, adding that if she wanted the companionship, he had all the time in the world. The Young and the Restless September 22nd episode was packed with tension, laying the groundwork for not only interpersonal conflicts, but also possible long-term consequences for several Genoa City actors. Billy Abbott, racked with rage, treachery, and wounded pride, and Cain Ashby, composed but cunning, were at the center of it all, frantically attempting to balance his new identity, his alliances, and the ghosts of his past. When Billy finally told Cain that he wouldn't like what was coming next, the moment wasn't just about two enemies squaring off. It was about years of accumulated anguish, rivalry, duplicity, and a yearning for redemption clashing in spectacular manner. Examining the numerous narrative threads that were intertwined, Tracy's thoughts on Cain, Jack's attempt to mentor his brother Billy, Michael's uneasy role in Cain's schemes, Phyllis's shady allegiances, and Tessa and Daniel's parallel mission to sort through Mariah's sinister confessions will help you understand why this episode felt so monumental. The themes of loyalty, trust, treachery, and the perils of unbridled obsession were mirrored in every thread. Cain, Tracy, and the anguish of deceit. The episode began with Jack and Diane bringing Tracy home to the Abbott mansion, setting a contemplative, almost deceptively calm tone. But as soon as Cain's name came up, that feeling was abruptly broken. For Tracy, Cain was more than just another unhappy individual caught up in Genoa City's never-ending web of intrigue. He had been a confidant, a friend, and even an inspiration. Tracy once had a strong belief in Cain, which was highlighted by Jack's recall that he had served as the inspiration for one of her writings. Even though Tracy had been intelligent enough to realize the boundaries of their relationship, the emotional intimacy that was created during Cain's divorce from Lily carried layers of depth. However, seeing him now, revealed as Aristotle Dumas, the mastermind of a complex scheme, made her doubt her judgment, her faith, and her capacity to separate good from cunning evil. It was particularly moving when Tracy disclosed that she had sought therapy following Cain's betrayal. Tracy confronted her scars head-on, in contrast to many Genoa City characters who move from crisis to crisis without ever admitting them. Her resiliency was demonstrated by her therapist's reminder that being duped by a sociopath was not her fault. She did, however, acknowledge that she had no animosity for Cain, which emphasizes Tracy's basic goodness. One must question, though, if her sympathy will make her susceptible once more. Phyllis's wriggling suggested envy, and Cain's eyes brightening later when he held Tracy implies that past emotions can resurface. The Abbott family may experience an unprecedented firestorm if Cain ever tries to take advantage of Tracy's forgiving nature. Billy and Jack, brothers in pain, brothers in conflict. Jack's early scenes were dominated by his worry about Billy. Billy, who was unstable, insecure, and constantly eager to prove himself, had not listened to Jack's attempts to talk him out of allowing Cain to get him into risky schemes. Jack hinted at impending disaster. Billy might be imprisoned as a result of Cain's tactics. The sad thing is that Billy's self-destruction cycle is quite recognizable. He has always struggled to balance his need for fame and power with his reckless decisions that undermine him. Jack is too familiar with this cycle. His frustration is a reflection of both brotherly love and the weariness of seeing Billy again make the same mistakes. Billy, however, isn't just acting in the same way as before. Betrayal stings more deeply this time. Before tearing it away, Cain held out the dream of taking back Abbott and Chancellor Communications. Compared to Jack, Victor, and other corporate titans in Genoa City, Billy has always battled feelings of inferiority. Billy couldn't bear the humiliation of being exploited, pushed aside, and strung along by Cain, someone he views as morally inferior and far less worthy. His rage was personal, unfiltered, and connected to the empty places inside of him where self-worth ought to be. It wasn't just about business. It wasn't just idle bravado either, as Billy rushed out of his altercation with Cain, saying that Cain wouldn't like what occurred next. Billy is at his breaking point. Furthermore, Billy Abbott rarely lets reason control his behavior after he makes the decision to exact revenge. Michael, Cain, and Phyllis, potential enemies, allies, or facilitators. Cain's capacity for manipulation and compartmentalization was evident. He preferred Michael Baldwin as a solid, rational ally and attempted to brush Billy aside on his train as unstable and overly sentimental. Cain pretended that his choice was sensible because Billy couldn't be relied upon to remain composed or logical. But in reality, Cain was afraid of Billy's unpredictable nature. Billy is hazardous because of his ability to destroy anything. Michael received a frightening command from Cain: neutralize Billy and keep him in check before he jeopardizes their goals. Cain wants suppression rather than compromise. Cain's world is made even more complicated by Phyllis's presence. A dance of half-truths and jabs characterized their discussion. Phyllis claimed that Cain was equally as vicious as she was, ready to demand allegiance, but also willing to turn on others when called upon. Mutual recognition is the source of their friendship. They both respect and see the worst in one another. Although Phyllis is capable of sparring with Cain, her loyalty is at best questionable. Her unspoken displeasure at Cain's warmth for Tracy and her lingering resentment toward Michael for standing up for Daniel's accuser point to fissures already beginning to emerge. Cain can find Phyllis's loyalty brittle at the wrong time if he depends on it too much. Michael, on the other hand, appeared more torn than either. A semi-retired lawyer who had once been well-respected, he seemed apprehensive about Cain's machinations, but let himself be drawn into them. Cain's manipulations and Billy's vindictive rage are two ticking time bombs that Michael is caught between, as his attempt to reason with Billy at society made clear. His relationship with Cain is unstable because of his devotion to Lauren and his family. Michael might have to pick a side if Billy's threats come to pass, endangering not just his safety but also his legal standing. Storm of revenge is being brewed by Billy at society. The episode's most important exchange was perhaps Billy's chat with Michael at the pub. He said bluntly that Cain had made a new foe. No more doubt or uncertainty. Billy declared himself Cain's opponent. Tension was heightened at this point because, although Cain may have believed he was getting rid of an unstable liability, he instead created his worst threat. Billy spoke with conviction, but also hate. This confrontation implied calculation, in contrast to many of his spontaneous outbursts. Billy is plotting in addition to being upset. Naturally, the irony is that Billy forewarned Michael to leave Cain's illicit plan before it was too late. Billy presented himself as the one who had finally realized Cain's deceptions, thus taking the moral high ground in that situation. However, a few minutes later, he turned around and suggested to Jack that they work together to defeat Cain. Billy's moral compass fluctuates like sand. What matters is that he feels strong and validated. He can regain his sense of purpose and direct his anger toward a shared foe by joining forces with Jack. If it holds, this new Abbott coalition might be explosive. Awkward reunions and lingering bonds between Tracy and Cain. The air became heavier with unresolved past when Cain and Tracy's paths met at society. Tracy acknowledged that she had thought of him over the years, and they shared a sweet embrace. Cain's remarks were sincere, but yet had a calculated undertone. He might be able to improve his reputation in Genoa City by getting back in touch with Tracy. However, Cain's longing for Tracy, his alliance with Phyllis, and his developing animosity with Billy all clash into explosive drama, as evidenced by Phyllis's obvious discomfort. Will Tracy's ability to forgive lead her to fall into Cain's trap once more? Or will she have to face Cain more forcefully than ever before because of her closeness with Jack and Billy, Daniel, Tessa, and the mystery of Mariah? Another tense plotline that ran concurrently to the Cain-Billy confrontation was Tessa and Daniel deciphering Mariah's revelations. Tessa was stunned when Mariah confessed that she had attempted to kill someone, and Daniel's effort to comfort her highlighted how grave the information was. Their choice to look into it more thoroughly and visit the hotel where Mariah had stayed added a layer of investigation that might eventually relate to Cain's plot. Given that Cain's activities have already attracted a number of Genoa city leaders, is there any chance that Mariah's evil may collide with Cain's schemes? The plot acted as a thematic mirror for the time being. Tessa and Daniel struggled with issues of truth, trust, and love, while Billy and Cain descended into retaliation and dishonesty. Despite her dread, Tessa's persistent devotion to Mariah demonstrated how love can persevere in the face of tragic revelations. Daniel's readiness to go with Tessa highlighted bravery and loyalty, two traits conspicuously lacking in Cain and Billy's conflict. Jack and Billy, an unsteady partnership against Cain. The episode's main climax was emphasized in the last scene at the Abbott estate. Billy barged in and slammed the door, insisting that Jack listen to him. He intended to form an alliance, not engage in combat. Considering how frequently Billy has defied Jack, this change was shocking. However, his animosity for Cain was more intense than his complaints about his brother. This idea represents a risk as well as an opportunity for Jack. The only option to stop Cain might be to side with Billy, yet doing so would require trusting someone who is unstable and erratic. Nevertheless, Jack saw that Cain had grown to be too significant to ignore. Thus, the episode ended on a promising note. Two divided Abbott brothers are now standing shoulder to shoulder to defeat Cain Ashby. Cain might finally have to confront the consequences he has long avoided if they carry out their plan. However, the price might ruin everyone's life on an emotional, personal, and legal level. The quiet before the firestorm is the conclusion. There was more to this young and the restless episode than a series of dialogues. A chessboard was being prepared for a furious conflict. Billy is dismissed as a liability by Cain, who feels in control of Michael and Phyllis. However, he might have doomed Billy by underestimating his anger and fortitude. Billy is now Cain's adversary rather than a collaborator, and his need for vengeance will not be easily slaked. Tracy's homecoming gave the story a moving emotional depth and served as a reminder of Cain's capacity to engender love and loyalty even in the faces of grief. The stakes were made plain by Diane's cautions, Michael's uneasiness, and Jack's unwavering worry. One mistake and someone will lose everything. The Tessa Daniels subplot, meanwhile, served as a reminder to viewers that truth, love, and loyalty are strong but brittle elements that, depending on how they are treated, can either build or destroy. Billy's warning that Cain won't like what's coming next looms large over Genoa City. With so many people caught in the crossfire, the impact may be disastrous and revenge is rarely pure. Even though the Abbott brothers may have finally come together, their partnership is risky. Even the most cunning plotter might not be able to escape the chaos of treachery, retaliation, and unresolved business, despite Cain's confidence.